Melissa. She's sitting up there in the cab giving everybody a great big wave. She'll be skillfully driving us throughout our backlot tour. And with that, we are all clear. One last thing, folks, we have absolutely no restrictions whatsoever on photography, so take as much photos or as much videotape as you'd like. You just never know who or what we might see out here. I can't think of a better way to begin our tour than with the symbol and icon of the Disney MGM Studios. If you look up high into the sky, just to the left of the forward motion of the shuttle, you'll see our award-winning Earful Tower. Now, this tower was built on an actual water tower that Walt Disney built out of his Burbank studios back in 1939. Ours stands a lucky 13 stories tall and is capped off by a giant set of mouse ears. Each of those ears weighs over 5,000 pounds. Now, for those of you on the right-hand side of the shuttle, you get a much better photo opportunity coming up in just a few moments. We'll be going ahead here and making a U-turn where you'll get a great shot of the Earful Tower. Now, in addition to being a theme park, Disney MGM Studios is also a state-of-the-art production center. We have sound stages, outdoor sets, state-of-the-art editing facilities, and recording studios. We have everything that's needed for the production of movies, television, and even live radio broadcasts. Now, on any given day, we have quite a bit going on here in the backlot. Today is no exception. At one of our large outdoor standing sets, we have our team of special effects folks that are out there doing some testing. Now, normally on this tour, we do get to go through that set. However, early this morning, they called and asked us told us actually that we'd have to detour around it because of what they were testing. Now, if that changes, Melissa will get a radio call. She'll inform me, and I'll let you know. So keep your fingers crossed, and we'll keep you posted as we get a little bit closer. Now, if you take a look off to the right-hand side, you'll see the first two of many props we're going to see this morning. If you've seen this summer's blockbuster hit film Pearl Harbor, you'll recognize these P-40 Replica Warhawk aircraft. These are 2 of the 16 that were built with filming the movie. The other 14 were intentionally destroyed during the filming process. They're just made out of steel frames covered in fiberglass, and the propellers are made out of wood. The engines, the propellers actually do turn through the use of some small electric motors. Now, all of the other aircraft that you saw in the film were what we call CGIs, or computer-generated images, and they were all added during post-production. Now, as promised, for those of you on the right-hand side, if you look up in the sky, you'll get your last eyeful of our Earful Tower. After you've taken that photo, look off to your left-hand side, you'll see some beige one-story buildings. Those are what we call bungalows. Now, when production crews come here to utilize our facilities, they use the bungalows as office spaces where the producers, writers, directors, and even the movie stars themselves meet to discuss the day-to-day business of filmmaking. But now I'm going to head inside for just a moment to one of the more glamorous areas on our tour. This is our award-winning creative costuming department. Now, the whole process begins with a designer's sketch. You can see many of these hanging along the back walls on both sides. And from these sketches, our team of talented sailors and seamstresses go to work to make the costumes that are actually worn by the stars. You can see some indications along the left-hand side, starting with 2 from The Rookie, starring Dennis Quaid and Jay Hernandez, followed by the red and white polka dot dress worn by Ashley Rose Orr in Disney's Child Star, the Shirley Temple movie, followed by Disney's The Kid starring Spencer Breslin. We have his bicycle and jacket. And last but not least, we have 2 winter parkers worn by Cuba Gooding Jr. from Snow Dog. Now, our team of over 250 professionals create more than 25,000 costumes every year out of 1.5 million yards of fabric. That makes us the world's largest working wardrobe in the world. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see some areas that's just being emptied out. That's because Jim Henson's production has just wrapped up filming a direct-to-video movie. It's called Kermit's Swamp Years, and it's a prequel to the Muppet movie. It talks about Kermit as he grew up as a youngster in the swamp, and it's due out later on this August. Off to the right-hand side, you'll see our scenic paint department. Right now, they're working on some blacklight backdrops for our Star Tours attraction. And still along the right-hand side, you'll see various props in storage, some from George of the Jungle, Atlantis, and some backdrops from some of our attractions. Now, on the left-hand side of our main scenic shot, that's where they construct and maintain all of those props and backdrops, both useful here and on location. Some of their more famous ones have included the sets for the Rosie O'Donnell Show, WCW Wrestling, and even the Wheel of Fortune. Now, one of the greatest things about movies today is they can pretty much take us to anywhere we want to go, whether it's from the house next door or a dangerous canyon or even the bottom of the ocean. And we're now going to enter that part of the backlot where I can show you most of those things that I just mentioned. Now, for example, if we wanted to shoot an Undersea Adventure, we head right over here to the left-hand side. Coming up, you'll see this large tent. If you look through the open flap, you'll see inside what looks like an ordinary swimming pool. In fact, that is our underwater special effects tank. It varies in depth from 4 to 16 feet, and most importantly, the bottom has been sculpted to look like the ocean floor. It was originally built for the Terry Hulk Hogan series Thunder in Paradise, and they found that filming in there is much more controllable and safer than doing it out in nature. Melissa's now going to take us to an area we call Residential Street, where you'll see some very unusual houses, starting with the first house on the right. If you look down the side, you'll notice there are no sides, insides, or backs to any of these homes. They are what we call facades off false fronts, and they're used for exterior filming only. Now, since different scripts call for different styles of neighborhoods, each of the 8 facades here on Residential Street represent a different style of American architecture. Number 242, which is the second house on the right, is the one that Jim Varney chose when he shot Ernest Saves Christmas. That was Vern's house. It was also our first full-length feature film shot here on the Backlot. It was in 1988 that we did that, which was about 1 year before the park opened to the general public. Now, all 8 facades here on Residential Street have at one time or another been used in either a movie, television, or even a commercial. One of our more popular ones is coming up on the left-hand side. It's the second on the left, the beige Hawaiian-style house. That, the 7 Seasons, was home to the Emmy Award-winning Golden Girls. That's right, Dorothy, Rose, Blanche, and Sophia shot all of their exterior footage right here, and that was edited together with their interior work that they shot on a soundstage out in Burbank, California. The reason you never saw them leave their house and go outside and check their mail was it would be about a 3,000-mile walk in their mailbox. Now, in the blue Cape Cod-style house just after the Golden Girls, that was home to Alice, Disney Channel's educational series, Adventures in Wonderland. And directly across the street from Alice, the 2-story beige house is under refurbishment, but that was home for the Touchstone Pictures hit sitcom Empty Nest, starring Richard Mulligan, Christy McNichol, and Bear the Dog as Dreyfus. Now, when production crews have to go out and film on location, very often they encounter problems, the least of which is not traffic, noise, and crowds. It's for those reasons that they like to shoot as much as possible on a quiet backlot like this. It just makes the whole filming process go a lot easier. Now, as we turn the corner here and look off to the left-hand side, you'll see our Washington Square Arch in the beginning of our New York Street set. Now, we'll be coming back by there later on in the tour, and it's going to be a great photo op when we go by the arch, and have your cameras ready at that time. Now, in today's movies, one of the favorite parts for all of us are the action scenes. You probably wonder what happens to all those cars, buses, trains, and planes, and other vehicles that are smashed up, blown up, chased after, and otherwise destroyed. Well, they end up out here in what we call our boneyard, along with some other oversized props. It's kind of like a giant outdoor attic. Now, you may recognize some of these props, starting with the first 3 wooden totem heads there on the right-hand side. Those are from the 13th Warrior, starring Antonio Banderas. The red and silver spacecraft was flown by Christopher Lloyd in My Favorite Martian. And then again, all along the right-hand side, you'll see that miniature cattle car. That was used to carry a giant ape, better known as Mighty Joe Young, and that miniature Humvee was from the same movie. Still going along the right-hand side, you'll see a series of military vehicles that were used by Steven Spielberg in Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. If you take a close look at the treads on the tank as you go by, you'll notice they're made out of foam rubber and not metal. Saved a lot of wear and tear on the actors and stunt doubles that had to be thrown on top of them time and time again. Those 2 coal mining cars at the very end were for Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom. And speaking of Doom, this contraption on the right was Judge Doom's Toontown Dipmobile from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. From that same movie, we have 4 more props, starting with the orange Pacific Electric cable car, which in fact is nothing other than a regular city bus made up to look like a cable car. The steel wheels are actually made out of fiberglass, and they just hang in front of the radial tires. The 3 blue Plymouths represent one single vehicle in 3 different stages of destruction. Now, the yellow helicopter was flown by Bill Nye the Science Guy in Ellen's Energy Adventure. You can catch that over at Epcot. The blue cockpit was used for close-ups of Roy Scheider in Blue Thunder. And these 2 prop aircraft were from the Rocketeer. They did not fly, however. The engines were made out of styrofoam. One thing that did fly was this long black speedboat. That was from Disney's 100 Lives of Black Jack Savage. It could actually reach speeds of up to 70 miles per hour. Now we have 3 science fiction props. First 2 are shuttle trainers from Starship Troopers. And then my favorite, the Silver Space Pod. That's Max from Disney's The Flight of the Navigator. Then if you look directly across the canal over there, you'll see the back side of Residential Street. You'll notice a lot of the architectural details, such as shingles and siding, have been left off. They've never built anything that the camera doesn't need to see. It's an old Hollywood production technique, actually. It's called saving a whole lot of money. Well, folks, I can tell by the turn that we just took that Melissa must have gotten approval to go into that live set, because that's where we're heading. Whoever had their fingers crossed did a good job. Now, I have been in here before. I can tell you that there is a very bumpy wooden bridge. So again, I'll remind you, remain seated at all times, both adults and children. Hold any loose articles you have close by, and we'll proceed over the bridge. And I can tell you a little bit about this set. Now, this set was designed by our special effects folks. It's based on a real canyon located out in Southern California. It took them about 6 months to build it, which may sound like an awful long time. But when you consider how long it took Mother Nature to do the real thing, 6 months isn't so bad after all. Now, that large tanker truck you see up there is an example of how we reviewed props that were in our boneyard. We took it from the boneyard, and since it couldn't be driven onto this set, it had to be raised up there by the use of a large crane. The cameras are all located on a platform just above us. And the reason that the set looks a little bit wet is because one of the things that they were testing out here today was a special rain effect. And I don't know if there's anybody still upstairs from the production crew. If there's anybody upstairs from the crew, could you turn on those rain nozzles that you were testing earlier this morning, folks? We have a tour shuttle down here that would like to see it. Oh, thanks a lot, guys. Now, what they were testing here is they were shooting this rain down on some high-powered nozzles located above us just in front of the cameras, and they found out that they shoot it out in a crisscross pattern that it tricks the camera into thinking the whole set is getting wet because the camera only sees in 2 dimensions. When in fact, it thinks the first 12 or 15 feet. See, once you tell guys, we just wanted a rain effect. This is not the sun shuttle, this is a tour shuttle. We have guests on board here. Can you cut the scene? Guys, seriously, can you cut the scene, please? We'll get out of here as soon as possible. Just hang on, we'll get you out of here as soon as we can. Hang on, everybody.
Oh crap, that water's gonna come right over here.
I don't think that would be a good idea. Well, everybody, you probably have figured out by now why we call this catastrophe canyon. What do you think about it? Well, take one last look at the set because we're going to head on out back now, and I'll show you how all these special effects were done, and we're all clear. Trust me, folks, as we head around back, the back side of the canyon will look nothing like the front side does. Now, as you're approaching the shuttle to park the canyon, take a look off to your left-hand side. You'll see that the canyon is actually a steel structure covered with wire mesh and colored concrete that's been hand sculpted to make it look like natural rock formation. The small yellow pipes down below carry all the propane that we needed for the fire and explosions. And the larger gray pipes carry all the water for the flash flood. Now, we activated that flash flood by opening 3 very large holding tanks located at the very top of the canyon, sending more than 70,000 gallons of water thundering down the canyon towards our tour shuttle. We amplified that effect by the use of some high-powered water cannons that are so powerful if we took one to New York City and put a basketball in it, it actually shoot the basketball over the Empire State Building with room to spare. The earthquake effect that we felt was caused by hydraulic scissor cables located at the bridge. Be inside and get your camera ready because I want to show you one thing that's near and dear to us here. This aircraft is not a prop, it's a real airplane. It's known at airports around the world as November 234 Mickey Mouse, and it was Walt Disney's private aircraft. He used it to carry himself and his Imagineers between California and New York City for the 1964 World's Fair. And most importantly, he used that aircraft when he conducted his secret scouting missions all over Central Florida, looking for just that right location to locate the Walt Disney World Resort. as we turn the corner here, look up to your right and through the trees, and you'll see through the trees the backside of our New York Street set and what holds those building up. Just like Residential Street, New York Street are all facades. They are built, however, with Central Florida weather in mind and can actually withstand hurricane-force winds of up to 100 miles per hour. That's pretty good when you figure that there's not a single real brick in any of the buildings. They're all made out of primarily fiberglass, plywood, and styrofoam. Now we're coming up on that Washington Square Arch, and as I told you earlier, as we go by, I'll have a great photo up. If you look directly through the center of the arch and down towards the end of the street, you'll see what looks like the New York City skyline right here in Central Florida. What you're actually looking at there is a series of painted flats. The real Empire State Building is over 100 stories tall. Ours is just over 4. It's a production technique known as forced perspective. Another interesting aspect of that is if you go on to New York Street, notice that the street lights starting at this end of the street and going towards the skyline progressively get smaller and shorter, and it adds to that false perspective. It's really pretty interesting. Well, we're just about at the end of our riding portion of the tour. We'll be dropping you off at the American Film Institute Showcase, where inside you'll find an exhibit. It's called Dress to Thrill, and it features the fabulous female in film and the costumes they wore during the golden age of Hollywood.